treatment. I would be one of two caregivers at a research hospital. I left California, moved to Seattle, Washington, got us a house 2 blocks from the hospital, and settled down. 8 or 9 months after being told 2 or 3, we were still there. His improvement would be followed by his decline. I was caring for the other caregiver after she broke her foot. This was 24/7 duty. We take him to the ER for nasal bleeding at night. We take him home after a week in the hospital. It was hard on everyone. In November, he died. I was exhausted mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Everything was gone. At a singing program with a buddy, a guy I was seeing in Seattle, I caught a horrible virus that was comparable to COVID-19. Flu became pneumonia, then ARDS. I was given 38% chance of survival. I went from independent to on a ventilator and drug-induced coma for 3 weeks. My family from California and Colorado came up to try, even though I probably wouldn't make it. The technology wasn't there 23 years ago. They tested people like me. A doctor told me, I'm going to give you something called white amnesia, and that's going to cause you to completely forget or not be able to remember anything that will happen to you in this coma while we're doing all these terrible experimental things to you. You'll thank me for it. I had no choice. I bid goodbye to my parents, daughter, and family, and prepared to sleep. That didn't happen. I don't know when in these 3 weeks they told my family I wouldn't make it and they needed to say goodbye. Really don't know, but in a drug-induced coma, your spirit can wander, and I woke up suddenly. I woke up in total darkness. There was silence. Nobody told me if I was sitting or standing. I assumed someone was tricking me into a closet, so I waited. However, a reddish glow appeared in front of me and was gradually lightening. I thought, good, the sun's coming up, okay. Now I can see where I am and what's going on. But as it became lighter, everything got cloudy and swirled. It blocked my view. I smelled something dreadful. It got too warm. And then I heard wailing and groaning from this cloud. I thought, this can't be good. Then a booming voice exclaimed, "Do you know where you are?" I responded, "I hope I'm wrong, but hell." The voice laughed maniacally. I panicked. No matter what occurred, I had to leave that monstrosity. I turned and dashed into darkness. It suddenly became bright, and I looked around, startled, wondering where I was. I was where? I saw this huge city, but an atomic bomb and aliens confused me. The buildings collapsed and burned, windows were blasted out. Concrete chunks with rebar sticking out were everywhere, and there was shouting and yelling. I was scared. I sought refuge to regain my composure. It was clear I was in danger. Strange noises, a scuttling metallic sound like a big spider or tank, and then a number of people appeared from the darkness and approached me. They didn't communicate, were in rags, didn't get close, and one muttered, "We are all alone here." I thought, I'd better find another place to be. So I raced out into the wreckage and tried to scale this concrete wall. I sank backwards into the darkness when my fingers started slipping at the top. After the lights came up, I was somewhere else. It looked like a movie set from ahead. On the stage were bent beauty parlor chairs and strange mirrors, like a haunted house with frightening and unusual things. Still, I saw someone I knew. My relative needed to be watched. She was extremely careful about appearing pretty all the time, which was fine even if you were caustic inside. I was happy to see a familiar face, so I went to talk to her. So I went to this set, and she said, "Oh my gosh, you look awful. Get up here, and I'll fix your hair and your makeup." I climbed up a chair and said, "No, you don't understand what's going on here. There's something very, very weird." She said, "No, if you look good, it'll be all right." She had 2 attractive, well-dressed friends. After I mentioned it, they laughed meanly and wouldn't stop. It maddened me, so I left the stage. I entered darkness. Next, the lights went out and they rose. I had to glance up because a monster was there. People ask, how do you know that was a demon? Well, if you'd never gone to Australia and saw a kangaroo run by, you'd say, that's a kangaroo. That was a big, hideous beast, not a person. Probably a yeti with a ragged clothes and a large stick. I looked up and looked back and thought, "Oh, golly, what's this?" He asked, "Do you want to get out of here?" I said, "Yes," in perfect English. He said, Okay, I can see to it that you get out of here. I said, great. He said, one job. I got one job for you. I said, all right, that's kind of weird, but sure, what is it? He waved his hand, and the lights came up behind him, and as far as I could see, it was a field of B. I felt uneasy looking at this enormous field. He replies, all you gotta do is cut down all those brambly bushes, and I'll see that you get out of here. I'm from Washington, where there are lots of blackberries, and I know it would have taken me years with equipment, gloves, sharp scissors, and such. But I thought, well, I got no place else to go. Sure, give me a chance. He smiled and handed me kindergarten paper cutting scissors. Thought, oh, that's not a nice guy here. I took the scissors from him, attempted to scoot down as far as I could, was scratched, and gnawed on one of these canes till it came loose. I turned and put it behind me and get to the next cane. It sprouted back in front of me when I turned around. I didn't want to make the monster laugh, so I kept cutting. The lights went off and then back on. Because it was flat and gravel and dirt for miles, I thought walking on a road was excellent. That reddish glow seemed far away, yet there were no trees, plants, signs, or anything else but a road. I thought, well, at least nobody's gonna sneak up on me. I can do a 360 here, and I can walk. I walked and walked. I later realized that eternity has no time, so being on that road seemed forever. After walking for a while, I smelled something nice. Again, I had no idea where I was. I thought, I don't know how long I've been here, but I'm tired, hungry, and thirsty, and maybe somebody up there is cooking, and I can get something. Just my reality, and I was making the best of it. I saw a strange man seated in a chair at a road bend. On the other side, there were so many food tables, desserts, entrees, salads, and everything smelled amazing. This woman was frantically fixing things, setting dishes, and preparing everything. It was my relative again. I never thought I was dead down there. I felt puzzled, not dead, so I continued. I had no choice. I pleaded, please could I have just a small plate of anything that's left and a glass of water? I'd really appreciate it. She looked at me like she didn't know me and replied, this is for the important people. That hurt. Just got back on the road. I walked and walked. I still had some humor, even though hell has no sense of humor. I thought, I think I'm on a big treadmill. I don't really seem to be getting anywhere, but I like to walk. This is good. Not long after that, I saw people milling about and thought, well, this could be good news, this could be bad news. But as I got closer, I saw that they were limping, dragging their feet, talking, and growling. Ah, geez, this is not going to be good. The women wore soiled shawls and rags. I had to pass through a gathering of maybe 20 people to cross the road. There was no other way out, so I thought, well, maybe I'll just keep my eyes down, and I'll shuffle, and they'll think I'm one of them, and I can get through onto the other side and keep going. It worked for a while. I reached the center when they all froze, including me. The shawl-wearing women left the gathering, and the guys approached me. They were growling and muttering in a language I didn't understand when one punched me in the chest and sent me backwards. Another kicked me, and they jumped on me and did horrible things. When they were done, I was laying down, and this guy was in my face. His breath stank, and his face was falling off and rotted, and he said, we all have AIDS, and now you do too. You will not be able to die, you'll just get sicker and worse. That's your fate. They backed up, and a lady demon emerged. It wasn't attractive that she was half human and half demon. She leaned over me and said, you're one of us now. Get up. I had nothing else to do, so I thought, well, at least she'll get me away from these guys. I gathered my tattered clothes and stood up. By then, I'm thinking, I don't know if I'm going to get out of here or not. The demons had said, just despair, just give up, you'll never get out. I followed this lady to another group of women like me who had obviously been through what I had tattered clothing, and were crying. I waited in line, and she took us to the edge of the forest, where we saw a tundra with ice and snow, and no trees. We waited in line and followed her as instructed. Several times I thought, wow, how can this get any worse? But it did, and we walked until the snow was chest high and cold as hell was genuine. We arrived at this cabin freezing, and she opened the door and forced us inside and onto the floor. I added, "I've been here a long time, and it just seems to be a particularly depressing, bad energy time. Something." She says, "Well, it's Christmas on Earth, and that's always the worst day in hell." I had been ignoring that concept, but hearing her say it was the last straw. I started singing Away in a Manger, my favorite Christmas carol, thinking, what else can they do to me? I mean, really, she whirled around and yelled, "Shut up." She lifted a stick she was carrying. As I sang The Little Lord with the other ladies, she jumped at me like a spider, and I closed my eyes, and it went dark and light came. But this time, I felt immense love, joy, and bliss. I was shocked. It felt like every molecule of me was swimming in this ocean of love, becoming saturated. I was so pleased and glad I forgot everything. Only love existed. As I looked around, this white light seemed to be evolving into a cathedral or white granite building. I looked straight ahead and saw my friend, who had died a month earlier, looking terrific. He had leukemia last time I saw him, and his face was mottled. He'd lost all his hair, and his eye was swelled with infection. But he looked great. Instead of 53, he looked 35. He wore my Christmas jumper. He loved seeing me. He was skipping from foot to foot, like he wanted to tell me a lot. I was astonished but thrilled. I thought, oops, he doesn't know he's dead. But then he laughed, and I thought, oh my goodness, he heard me, and if he's dead, then I'm dead. I was so excited. This must be heaven. I asked him, why are you standing in front of that doorway? And observed a large book on a table to one side. It opened halfway, and I assumed he was showing me something in that book. What was it? He started walking toward me, and I was excited. What? Now, Mary Kay, you've got too much left to do. I answered, no, they were throwing me out. He grinned, and I left. This time, there was a meadow with a stream. After thinking about it, I realized God was probably giving me a break since I was upset and wouldn't send me back in that state. So I walked this creek. It was great to descend. I encountered a woman who spoke a language I didn't comprehend. It sounded Scandinavian, but she gave me a modest, gorgeous handmade quilt. I said thanks, Speaking in some language, she motioned to go down the stream. I walked along the stream with the quilt over my shoulder. It was lovely. There was another woman. She was in a rocking rocker, waved, and I waved. She started chatting in this language and gave me these bride-to-be trousseau gifts. I said, oh, thanks, draped her lace nightie over my shoulder, and kept walking. The final lady gave me another pretty lacy gift and a piece of paper that said in English, you should give this to my boyfriend's name and tell him you must live together. I thought, can this get any weirder? Sure. Then boom, it went dark, and the lights came up, and they were too bright, and there were all these people milling around, and I thought, oh no, the zombie people are back. Of course the tract was still in me, and thanks to nasal tube feeding, I had lost all muscular mass and weighed 86 pounds. I was immobile. A few days later, the doctor examined me. I can only blink and move one finger. The end. So I'm in the coma for about 3 weeks, and here, you've got too much left to do. And I think, I can't even breathe by myself. How am I going to get all this stuff done so I can go back to heaven? I returned home after a month. I was depressed. Demons tormented me still. Not sure what that was about. How did a fine Catholic girl like me go to hell? Nobody cared about my tale. They overreacted. That's sad. That's odd. Why were you in hell? You did what we don't know? Started writing. I wrote down everything I could think of and put it in a drawer, thinking, if I could just get this out of my head, I'll be sane and I could start to have my life back. It took me 10 years to find IONS, the International Association of Near-Death Studies. We each bring back a puzzle piece when we arrive, and you share it to help us understand what happened. I now realize we are all God. Our souls are God's. I discovered that God is all-loving, all-forgiving, and never condemns. Nothing I was taught about God sending individuals to purgatory or hell is accurate. We choose to learn here, I think. Learned patience. I learned many things I wanted. I'm sure I went to that spot because I assumed I would. The way has changed a lot. I think, feel, believe. If they're interested, I'll inform them. Nobody forces my opinions on anyone. They choose their life and fate. Knowing you're no longer a victim is great. Now I say, I planned that. What was I hoping to learn? It simplifies my life. I feel liberated. I'll go home, therefore. I'm just sharing my tale to aid you.